A tiger, rescued from a life of abuse, kept in isolation and struggling with deep sadness. A little girl, full of innocence and love, with a special bond to animals. Do you wonder how this unlikely connection formed, and why this tiger, once so withdrawn, would bow before a child? Stay tuned for today's story on Animals Need Love and discover the powerful bond that changed both their lives. Wildwood Sanctuary was a magical place for Lyla, a haven for both animals and visitors alike. It was the perfect place for Lyla's boundless energy, where she could connect with her favorite animals up close. As the family entered the sanctuary, Lyla led the way with an unrelenting determination, her small legs working overtime to carry her toward the tiger enclosure. The massive glass walls of the tiger's exhibit stood in front of them, creating a barrier that allowed visitors to observe the animals without disturbing them. It was a place of safety for both the creatures and the guests, offering unobstructed views. Lyla's parents watched as she eagerly ran ahead, already distracted by a large lion resting nearby. Before reaching the tigers, Lyla paused, her attention drawn to the lion basking in the sun, just a few steps away. She had always been drawn to the powerful grace of the lions. Without hesitation, she pressed her tiny hands against the glass, standing perfectly still as she stared at the magnificent creature. The lion, seemingly sensing the connection, stood and padded over to the glass. Sitting down in front of Lyla, Clara and Mark smiled, impressed by how comfortable Lyla was with the animals, even this massive lion who had a calm, knowing gaze. Lyla giggled softly, watching as the lion's amber eyes met hers, as if they shared a quiet understanding. For a moment, there was an unspoken bond between them, a feeling that Lyla wasn't alone, that she belonged in this world of animals. Lyla was getting more and more excited as she finally made her way to the tiger cage. The moment she approached the glass, she spotted Talon in the back of the exhibit, lounging lazily on a rock. But when Lyla stopped in front of the glass, something incredible happened. Talon's head slowly rose, his amber eyes locking with hers, and for the first time that day, the tiger moved closer. As Lyla pressed her hands against the glass, Talon approached, his powerful paws patting gently along the ground. He paused right in front of her, staring at her with such intensity that Clara and Mark felt a shiver run down their spines. Then Talon did the unexpected. He lowered his head slowly and bowed in front of Lyla, his large body lowering in a silent gesture of respect. Clara and Mark exchanged glances, both in awe and confusion. The other visitors around them gasped, watching the extraordinary moment unfold. No one had ever seen Talon behave this way before. He had been in the sanctuary for months, and while he was calm, he was also distant. He had never interacted with anyone like this, certainly not with such reverence. It was a strange and touching sight, and as Lyla stood motionless, her hands still on the glass, it was clear that something deeply meaningful was happening between the little girl and the tiger. But what was it, and why did Talon bow to her? This mystery was only just beginning to unfold. Clara and Mark saw a zoo worker walk up to Lyla as she stood in front of the glass with her hands lightly pressing against it. Ethan, the head zookeeper, had been observing Talon's strange behavior from a distance and had seen the bond form between the tiger and the little girl. He walked over with a soft smile, though there was a trace of concern in his eyes. "Excuse me," he said, addressing Clara and Mark. "I'm Ethan, the head zookeeper. I've noticed something truly remarkable today. It seems your daughter has made an extraordinary connection with Talon, the tiger." Clara and Mark exchanged looks, unsure of what to make of the situation. "Is this normal behavior for him?" Mark asked, still trying to process what had just happened. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. Not at all. Talon is generally reserved and distant, but we've noticed that his behavior has changed ever since he arrived here. It's not uncommon for animals with difficult pasts to behave in unexpected ways, but your daughter, she might be the key to helping him heal. Ethan then explained that Talon had a history of abuse before being rescued and brought to the sanctuary. He'd been through a lot, and his emotional scars ran deep. Lyla's kindness and innocence had clearly had an effect on him. As the conversation turned toward Talon's past, Ethan shared more details. Talon had been rescued from an illegal exotic animal trade operation, where he had spent most of his young life in captivity. He had been kept in a small cage, barely able to move, and the lack of space had left him withdrawn and depressed. His previous owners had deprived him of any proper care, and his spirit had been broken. His past was filled with neglect and cruelty, Ethan explained, a somber tone in his voice. He was eventually confiscated, and we brought him here with hopes of rehabilitating him, but he's still been struggling to adjust. We've tried everything, enrichment activities, training, even medication, but he's just lost. Clara's heart ached for the tiger. The thought of such a majestic animal suffering in silence was too much to bear. She looked down at Lyla, who was still transfixed by Talon's gaze. It wasn't just Talon who had a special connection with Lyla. Ethan took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to tell them something even more astonishing. There's another animal here who's also been struggling, he said, guiding them toward a nearby enclosure. This is Leo. Behind the glass, a lion sat silently in the corner of his enclosure. Unlike Talon, Leo didn't approach the glass or make any attempts to interact with the visitors. He seemed distant and withdrawn, a far cry from the mighty king of the jungle he once might have been. Leo came to us from a similar situation, Ethan continued. He was kept in a private collection and abused by his owner. When he arrived here, he was malnourished, fearful, and traumatized. He's made some progress, but there's still a long way to go. Lyla immediately noticed the lion and pressed her hands against the glass, much like she had done with Talon. As her parents watched in wonder, Laos, who had shown no interest in the visitors before, stood up and slowly walked toward the glass. He sat down just in front of Lyla, gazing at her with calm, sorrowful eyes. Once again, Lyla giggled softly, as though she understood the lion's sadness, her gaze full of empathy. For a moment, the lion seemed to relax in her presence, his tense muscles loosening, as if her innocence and kindness were reaching into his heart. Ethan watched the interaction, his eyes widening in amazement. I've never seen Leo respond like that before, he said quietly. Perhaps there's more to Lyla than we've realized. She has a gift, a natural ability to connect with these animals. I think she could really help them. Clara and Mark looked at each other, amazed. They had never seen Lyla's bond with animals so clearly before, but now it seemed undeniable. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low but filled with hope. If you're willing, we'd like to offer your family the chance to come back regularly, especially to spend time with Talon and Leo. Maybe Lyla could help them both find some peace. It could make a big difference in their recovery. Clara and Mark were taken aback by the offer, but there was no hesitation in their hearts. They had seen the difference Lyla had made in a single visit. They knew the animals needed her gentle presence. We'd love to, Clara said, her voice filled with conviction. We'll come as often as we can. Over the next few months, Lyla became a cherished part of the Wildwood Sanctuary. She and her parents returned regularly, spending hours with Talon, Leo, and other animals in need of healing. Lyla's bond with Talon deepened, and the tiger slowly began to show signs of improvement. He no longer cowered in the corners of his enclosure. Instead, he would seek out Lyla's presence, following her movements, mirroring her actions. Leo, too, seemed to find comfort in Lyla's company. His once fearful demeanor softened, and he began to engage with the visitors more, though still with a calm and reserved nature. The sanctuary staff took note of Lyla's unique ability to connect with the animals. As she grew older, she began to help with smaller tasks, assisting the zookeepers during feedings and enrichment sessions. She had become more than just a visitor. She was part of the sanctuary's healing process, both for the animals and for herself. As Lyla grew, so did her love for animals. Inspired by her experiences with Talon, Leo, and the other creatures at Wildwood Sanctuary, she dreamed of one day becoming a veterinarian, helping animals who had suffered as Talon and Leo had. One day, as she sat in the sanctuary, watching Leo as he relaxed in the sun, Lyla turned to her parents. "I want to help them," she said softly. "I want to make them feel better, just like I did with Talon and Leo." Clara and Mark smiled warmly, knowing that their daughter had found her calling. They knew that her special bond with animals would guide her to a future where she could make a real difference. And so, Lyla's journey continued, one inspired by the lion who had shown her what it meant to heal a broken spirit and to find her own purpose in the process. That's the end of the story today. Do you have any stories about the special bond you share with an animal? Or perhaps you've witnessed a surprising connection between a human and an animal? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you find our video interesting, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with others. Finally, don't forget to turn on our bell and subscribe to our channel. Animals need love, so you don't miss any of our new videos. Thank you for your support. Wishing you all peace, happiness. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.